it then, because it says it's one handwritten.
I got a handwritten one too.
Okay, sounds good. Just make sure you get it to me by the end of class. If not, we'll talk, okay? Bop, bop, bop. Check, check, check. We're good? All right. There it is. There it is. PowerPoint. Fertility. So everybody knows that next week we don't have class, right? No, I'm out of town. That's why we have next week off. Going home to see the family. I gotta go. I don't really want to. It's like an obligation. Yeah. I don't really enjoy. Okay. Here's the thing. I like going home to see my family and stuff. I get incredible airfare because my mom's retired from United Airlines, so I actually fly basically for free. And so like I have now then an obligation to go like 10 times a year. And like for the smallest thing, they're like, "Are you coming out? Are you coming out?" And I'm like, "No, I'm busy." "Oh, we gave you those flights. Why don't we just come out for the weekend?" I'm like, "Fine." So I'll come out, and then all of a sudden, I'll like within 12 hours of being there, I'll drop like $300. Just because that's what you do when you like go home and you see people and like you take people out to eat or you buy presents for the niece, or like you're at the airport and sandwiches are $25 and then you got to get a cab from the airport in Chicago. You got to get a cab all the way to wherever you're going. It's $35, $40. By the time I walk in the house, I've dropped $300 at my parents' house. So then I stay there for a week, so I drop another maybe $300, $400, $500. So by the time I'm done, I'm dropping $1,000 to go see my family when I didn't even want to go to begin with. So that's why I hate going. Like I could do Christmas and then at least one spot in the summer, which is this trip here. So I'm not too peeved about this. So I'm actually only doing 3 days with the family, and then 3 days I'm actually spending with my friends doing whatever the heck I want, which is nice. So it is awful that my wife has been gone with my son for 2 weeks on the mainland visiting her family. So now I'm going to leave. So I've been without Felix for like 2 weeks, and now it's going to be going on 3. And it's like he was just barely walking. Like he was getting like 5, 10, 12 steps down, and then now he's running through my mom's house already. And by the time I see him, he's going to be hauling ass. So like I missed that whole 3 weeks. It's a pretty important 3 weeks. After that, it's like, whatever. Just I got to wait till he starts talking at that point. But I missed that one. It's unfortunate. So traveling, and we're moving at the end of this month. So and my research project is going on right now. So it's like, my wife is actually going to have to go out and hike out 2 miles with my baby strapped to her back to go out and stir some IMO piles that are out in pretty remote areas. It's like, honey, I need your help. You want me to hike where? Come on, man. This has got to work a little bit better. It goes in there. That goes there. This was working earlier. Try that. Come on, people. Work with me here. Oh, that's it. I forgot.
The IMO piles you're doing is for your thesis?
Yeah. So I'm researching, I'm researching IMOs from 2 different sources. I'm studying the Korean natural farming method where they use wheat mill run. Actually, that's Hawaiian natural farming method. Versus my method, which is sugarcane bagasse, ground up real fine. and it's more readily available, and there's a lot less processing involved. So I'm trying to compare the two starches with each other. I'm going to inoculate with the same microorganisms, and then I do 2 piles at 6 locations going from sea level up to 3,000 feet every 500 feet. So basically, the reason I do that is because microorganisms at different elevations, well, they actually have completely different populations and species. So at 3,000 feet, you're going to have a completely different consortia or group of microorganisms than you're going to have at sea level. And so my goal would be to compare the higher level ones with the lower level ones, and then show that it really doesn't matter what the microorganisms are, it's that they're there, and that you can get the same growth pattern no matter what elevation you do. It's the method of inoculating your soil with microorganisms that makes it awesome, not necessarily what microorganisms are in it that makes it awesome. Because when you talk to a biologist, especially microbiologists and soil biologists, they'll tell you, they always want to know what are the microorganisms that are in it. What specifically are the ones in there that are working? And my argument is it doesn't matter. And it's just that if you have a high population of biology, then that's the goal of the process, and it's not to find out what is exactly in it. Now, if I had money to do DNA testing, some sequencing and all that, I would be able to answer those questions. And I love doing my lectures where I'll talk about my project, and they'll always be like, so what's in it? And I'll always be like, I don't really care, moving on to the next question. And then they'll always halt me and be like, no, you might have some pathogens or whatever in there. And I say that's why I test and experiment for pathogens in application. I don't put each and every batch under a microscope to see if there's bad stuff in it. You essentially make a batch and then you test it. That's the best way to do it, because the whole system is made for the rural, poor farmer. And so you have to answer the questions that the farmers want answered before you can answer the questions that the scientists want answered. And that's just my stance on it. And so it's very, very difficult. Most people would go the other route, which is much more expensive, and I don't really have the funds for that.
Where are you moving to? Is it here?
I'm moving to Opihikau. So yeah, I'm just going that way. Yeah, I'm turned around. Yeah, I'm going from there to there. So yeah, I'm knocking 35 minutes off my trip when I drive into Hilo, and and we're saving about half our money on rent. So it's utility free, it's a nice place, it's on the same acreage, so it just makes sense. So my wife has decided to stay home with the kid, and we budgeted for that, and then all of a sudden she got a job teaching online at 2 places where she's actually now going to make the same that she made teaching at high school, but she's going to teach at home, which is really nice. So enough about me. Okay, let's get these handed out. Oh, that was really boring for people watching that on a video. So make sure everybody gets one of those. Make sure everybody gets one of those. Make sure everybody gets one of those. One of those. You can take the paper clips off if you want.
Two separate ones, huh?
Those and those. All right, I'm going to lecture up here. I'm also going to lecture over on that board. Hopefully you guys can do, you'll move if you need to, okay. My illustrations are really bad. I'm going to do illustrations today. Sorry about that. I write like a 4-year-old. It's a sign of intelligence. That's why all doctors, you can't read their handwriting. It's because our brains move way too fast for our hands. So if you can't read what I'm writing, sorry about that. And I remember they gave me a really bad eraser last time. So hopefully I won't have to use the chemicals. I don't know how many handouts I just gave you. It would have been nice to have a number, wouldn't it? Sorry about that. Oh, good news for next week. There's only, I think, just a couple of those pamphlets. I'll go through them, but that's all the reading you have for next week, plus the book reading. So it's, I'm guessing a few of you are going to have to read the first time or reread the material that I'm going to get talking about today. So it's just a lot of reading, a little bit of homework. You got 2 weeks to do it. We don't know that. I think it's 7? Okay. Extras?
Yeah, because I print one out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that on the homeworks. I gave you guys, no information on how to do a soil test, and then I asked you the question on how to do a soil test, right? Yeah. Okay, that was a total mistake on my part. Last class we did the soil sampling and the piggery in the same day, and I didn't read over the homework. I was supposed to take that question out. So anybody that didn't get it right, I told you don't worry about it. We'll talk about it next class. Almost all of you guys totally got it correct and I'm assuming able to find this document or something similar. You did a really good job on that. So.
Can we go through it and see, make sure we got all that?
Yeah.
Handouts?
Yeah. Who thinks they got them all? You? All right, everybody's got a homework 2, right? Right? On the homework, please look at the words really carefully. Like on number 1, it says list. I know I say full sentences, but this first one, I just want a list because it's a lot of info. So don't worry about full sentences on that first one, right? So it says, if it says list, go ahead and list. If it says describe or give a detail or discuss, that means full sentences, okay? So this first one, give me a list of the macro and micronutrients. Shouldn't be too hard. We're going to go over that today. And then give me a list of their plant functions. What do each one of those nutrients do in a plant or for a plant, okay? And then, which is in a list form, that's fine. And then deficiency symptoms of each. We'll talk about that today. We'll actually talk a little bit about that on the last day of class as well, because when we talk about IPM, pests certainly can be lack of nutrients, or weeds can cause lack of nutrients that can give you deficiency symptoms. So it's real good to understand that on the last class too. In your own words, describe those types of things. I just want full sentences. You guys did a really good job as far as the grammar and the sentence structure goes. I don't know if everybody got the notification. I probably didn't put it on there if I didn't think it was needed. But if anybody wants their homework to be edited grammatically, I'm happily going to be able to do that for you, okay? Okay, so just give me an email if you haven't already replied, and just tell me you want me to go through and grammatically correct it. This is not an English class. You can turn it in however you want, whatever sentence structure you come up with, but a lot of folks just want to continue improving their writing, no matter how many times they've done it. So if you want that service, I'm happy to do it for you on my free time. So if I get it to you after you turn in the homework, maybe a week later, I'll still be able to do it. But you'll at least get that grammatic corrections back if you want it, okay? Not required. When we get over to the back, there's a couple equations. So when we do the equations on the board today, and we do them, especially in the PowerPoint, pay real close attention on how to answer those. And just a suggestion, maybe have this in front of you while we're going through it, and you might be able to answer the homework question while we're going through it, okay? Just to make it a little easier on you. So consider that. Don't have to. If you don't know how much fertilizer you're putting in, if you're getting recommendations from CTAR and they tell you to put in X amount of fertilizer, if you don't know how to convert and calculate these things, then you are going to do what almost every other farmer that has this knowledge but doesn't utilize it does, and basically go out into the field, try to figure out the numbers, get their mind rattled, and then just go, "Bleh," and you just throw stuff out there. And that's just not the way to do it. So everybody has great intentions with their fertilizer usage, but until you really know how to do the equations, and it really is getting the ratios down and understanding that you can hit 1, 2, 3, 4 birds with one stone if you do it correctly. And then also, if you do it correctly, you have no environmental impacts, or at least minimal environmental impacts for putting out fertilizers. Okay? You guys do understand that fertilizers are probably the number 1, number 2 cause of pollution in the world. Causes everything from air pollution to water pollution, causes death of humans. I mean, it's just, it is an awful, awful thing to hit the earth, is when farmers abuse fertilizers, okay? All the issues we have with coral reefs, all that stuff, all that comes from farmers. Okay? Nitrification, eutrophication, all these wonderful things that we are responsible for as farmers. Photo release form, I need this signed before you guys leave today. This is to, in case you get your image on the video, just releases it to the world and allows us to use it. This is assumption of risk. You should have signed this already before we did our first field trip, but please get this to me by the end of class. And this is to say that you're going to go on activities and we're not responsible if you cut your foot off. I should probably be up front with these so you can see me. I'll give them back, yeah. This Oahu Master Gardener sheet. Make sure you have that. It's a wonderful sheet that I want you to read through, and it'll make a whole lot of sense, especially after we do the soils activity in 2 weeks. So that's what this is for. This is a reading for 2 weeks from now. Here's another one, sampling, the chapter 2, sampling and analysis of soils and plant tissues. This is pretty complicated stuff. This is real scientific stuff. So I don't expect you to wrap your whole head around it, but understand that, like, has stuff in here like how to take a tissue sample. How important is that? So understand how to do that. Understand that I think that they talk about, yeah, on this graph in the back, table 2.1, they talk about at what stage of growth are you going to want to take a tissue sample, and where do you take that tissue sample from is super important. So you can't just go up to any tree and pull down a leaf. You have to actually take a leaf from a certain section of the tree. Sometimes it's the first, second, or third node up. Or like for corn, or not corn, soybean, you want to do 2 or 3 fully developed leaves at the top of the plant. So it's really dependent on the species of crop that you're doing and what you're trying to test for. So I want you to understand those concepts. Prescription for soils and crops, guide to soil testing for Hawaii residents. This is basically a very simple write-up, just like the CTAR one. Testing your soils.
Which one is that?
This is RX for soils and crops. Okay. It's basically almost the same thing as this other CTAR write-up, testing your soils. This one here. I think all the concepts about soil testing are on these 2 sheets, so be sure you read those up. I think that's it, right? Yeah, the CTAR one is better because be sure you bring that CTAR sheet next week, or in 2 weeks, because the back page here, each student is going to turn in one of these order forms, or what do you call it? Soil sample information form. So we're going to,
They're gonna do a sample on site?
yeah, we're going to do a sample on site. We're actually not going to turn it in, but I'm going to give you, we're going to go through the write-up on how to interpret the write-ups that they give back. And then the next, well, during the lecture of the next class, I'm going to educate you guys on your specific soils, and then you'll know what your soil type is and all that stuff, so we'll be able to put that on the form for your specific plot of land. So your neighbor might have a different soil type, and we'll be able to show you that how to discover your soil type and how to fill out the form correctly. So, all right? So we're going to do that in the field. No. Soil, no. Don't bring anything. We're going to go out to the field, and we're going to do it as a group. We're going to go out and basically, I'm just going to do how one farmer would do a soil sample on their land, and then you would just be able to mimic that and replicate that on your land. But we're going to do it all together, fill out the form, and then we'll see how to interpret the recommendations. Okay? It all makes sense when we get there. I promise I won't. What's the word? So my wife says to me last night at about 9 o'clock, I'm flying in on Saturday, just to let you know. She was supposed to come home on Sunday. So I've been living like a bachelor for like a week and a half. I mean, I got dishes piled up to here, laundry all over the house. Bathroom is just trashed. So she calls me last night and says, I'm coming home tomorrow. So I was up till like 3 o'clock in the morning cleaning up my scum and my trash. So if I'm a little slower today, I do apologize. So maybe that'll help you. That'll be right at your speed, right? Doing okay on camera? I've spent 30 minutes talking about nothing. 22. All right. Okay, folks, we're going to talk about soil fertility. I'm going to go over there on the board and talk about a few things. But for the most part, I'm going to ramble on and on and on, and I want you to stop me if nothing makes sense or you have a question about anything, okay? I will ask you at the end of every slide, does this make sense? I can tell by the look on your face if you're lying. I can. All right. We're talking about plant. Can you turn that light off? Maybe we can get some. Of course, everybody's going to go to sleep. No, this one. There you go. Okay, better? All right, we're talking about plant fertility. We're going to talk about plant nutrition basics. This is what every farmer should know about plants. Okay, this is super important. And I've heard a couple horror stories the last couple months about farmers who have been going 40 years without understanding these concepts. And then the looks on their faces when I show them the concepts, and they're like, wow, I wish I would have known this 40 years ago. And most of the time it's because they realize that they've been hurting the environment. And it's not so much an economics thing. It's just that they realize that, holy crap, I've been doing it so wrong, and what have I done to my island? So don't feel guilty. Just know that from this moment on, you'll be able to understand these concepts and be a much more responsible farmer. We're going to talk about organic versus conventional versus natural fertilizers. I only like to talk about this because that's my thing, and I need you to realize that for 10,000 years we've been creating fertilizers from natural sources, and it's not a new science. It's just a reinvented science, and I want you to, before you ever put anything out, ask yourself, is there a natural option for this fertilizer I'm putting out? We're going to talk about application rates, super important. Like I said, the equations. You got to know how to do it responsibly, and this is the first step. With the homework on this, some folks will turn in the homework and it'll be incorrect. I don't just leave you hanging and say it's wrong. I usually help you through it. I might give you a hint. So just know that if you don't get it right on the homework the first time, get it in early, and I'll make sure that we adjust it and you understand all the concepts. Most of the time, for most of the students, that involved a phone call. We couldn't just do it over email. It just really took a phone call for you to reach out to me and say, okay, I keep getting this wrong. Let's talk through it. And then or you can come into my office. That's fine too. But just know that some people have to continue learning to get this right. So don't beat yourself against the wall, your head against the wall on that one. I'm here for you, right? We're going to talk about nutrition sourcing, where to get the materials from. You could do the traditional way. You could do, there's something floating in my water. Traditional way, you could do the natural methods, and we'll go through that. All right, here we go, guys. Plant nutrition. Just like everything else on the planet, plants need a source of nutrition. Now, we're not talking about energy, okay? We're talking about compounds that are needed to do metabolic and physiological processes where, in order to grow, in order to produce flowers, in order to make roots, cell division, these things, holding water, making cell walls, just like in us, those nutrients are needed to build certain structures and make enzymes and all wonderful juices and stuff. So we're talking about essential plant nutrients. Let's look at this table over here. This is the hierarchy of elemental nutritional requirements for plant life. Hierarchy, meaning some are more important than others. Wrong. It's not right. That's a really bad word, and I don't like that word being in there. Okay, so forget that's in there. Because, as I'll explain later, no one of these is more important than the other. Okay? But when we're talking about the amounts needed by the plant, we're talking about actual atomic weight or the actual volume of these materials. These are certainly higher than these, and going downward, okay? There's the basic nutrients, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. I'll go through these, so don't worry. Primary macronutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Secondary macronutrients, calcium, magnesium, sulfur. And micronutrients, iron, magnesium, zinc, copper, boron, molybdenum, I love that word, and chlorine. A couple others, silicon and cobalt. Now, macronutrients. Macronutrients being the ones up in this section, just below basic nutrients. There's primary and there's secondary. Macronutrients required in large amounts, like I said. Micronutrients, which are down in this section and below, they require smaller amounts. Some of these could be really small. When we're talking about cobalt especially, chlorine as well, really, really small amounts. Meaning so small that most plants are able to get them from the environment, from the soil environment, because they naturally exist in the soil. But we'll talk about that in a second. I don't want to get too far. There's minor or trace elements in the micronutrients. These are these down here. And I won't actually talk about those too much. But basically being minor or trace. These are sometimes called trace. These are most of the time called minor. But these are, I would refer to these as minor or trace elements specifically because such a small amount is needed. Silicon is usually existent in the soil unless you're in a volcanic environment like we are here. There's not a lot of silica in the soil. So sometimes this can be an issue for some people in Hawaii, but can easily be adjusted with the smallest amount of micronutrient additive. Cobalt,